over here. So once it's over here like that and exposed, you can peel a small piece of double stick tape like that and just place it on top like that. And of course, you don't want it to be too sticky, so you can just run your finger across it and just, unstick that double stickiness so the adhesive is not as strong. Of course, you can place the double stick tape away at this point, and you have some double stick tape behind that piece. So once your double stick tape is on, right here, you place that aside, and the next thing that you'll need is that red card that you have. And you'll need a duplicate of that in blue, but we'll talk about that later. Right now, you take the red card, and what you're going to do is you're going to fold it. You're going to fold it in half, like that, and then just going to unfold it and fold it in half again the other way. That way, it's in 4, like that. So it's in quarters. Okay, and just fold that a little bit, and you have this ready to go. You take that gimmick with a piece of tape on it, and you just place it right on top like that. And whether you're using double stick tape or magician wax, it'll stay in place. There you go, nice and secure. Now you need the rest of the deck that matches the unfolded gimmick. You'll be placing this gimmick aside for now. You have this entire deck, and of course, like I was saying before, you need a duplicate of that 4 of diamonds or the card of your choice. That's red. In this case, this blue card is going to actually be on top. In terms of the orientation of the deck, the bottom few cards you can turn over. I like to just turn over 5 so I have some room for play, and turn over 5 face up and leave that on the bottom. So the orientation right now is your 4th card, which is the 4 of diamonds, the duplicate card in blue, rest of the deck, and 5 face-up cards. Now you can always just have 1 face-up card or a few, but I like to have 5. You place the gimmick on the very bottom, like that, and I like to have the red corner over here, or the red section over here facing towards me, and there you go. So you have the gimmick on the bottom, and that's facing in this orientation. So now your deck is ready, and you're ready to perform the effect. So this sits in your card box, always ready to perform contrast, and you're just ready to blow some people's mind. Now let's say you found your victim right over there. You approach them, you take this deck of cards out of your card box, and you're ready to go. First thing you need to do is force this card, this top card that's sitting over here, the 4 of diamonds in this case. How do you do that? Well, I'm going to teach you a very basic one. Now when you're first introducing yourself or beginning your presentation, what you're going to do is set up for a riffle force. Now if you don't know what that is, we have a prerequisite section where it teaches you that, but I'm going to briefly walk through in terms of how to do it. All you're doing is swing cutting about 1/3 of the deck like that, so that you have a pinky break over here. And you're going to riffle the edge of the deck like that and have them say stop anytime to give them the illusion of free choice. However, you don't want to riffle enough so that they see the face-up cards. You just want to riffle and time them to say stop around the top portion around here. So let's say they would say stop. Stop! Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to pick up everything from the pinky break, and you're just going to cut the deck, or cut the rest of the packet on top like that. So it seems like they stopped at this card, which is, of course, we all know that it's the 4 of diamonds. So let's do that one more time. You do a cut, and when they're ready, you ask them to say stop anytime, right there, and you cut it to the top. So it seems like that's the card they stopped at, the 4 of diamonds. So you've successfully forced the 4 of diamonds on them. Once they pick the 4 of diamonds, you're going to have them fold the card in half, and then in half again, so that they're in quarters. So let's say they were to fold it in half like that. Doesn't need to be super pretty. They're folding it once, and then they're folding it again, like that. And if they're really struggling, I guess you can help them out as well, just speed up the process. But once they get to around here, you place this on top of the deck like that, okay? Maybe try to unfold it so that it's relatively flat, so it's not just, popping up from the top of the deck, so they can see the folds. And they were the one folding it. And of course, all this is implanting the idea that everything is blue right now. This 4 of diamonds is blue, the rest of the deck is blue. It's blue, blue, blue card. So once it's on top, you're going to do the switch. This very devious switch in order to switch for that card that the gimmick is on right now. How do you do it? You use some sort of justification. In this case, what Jason likes to do is to look for a Sharpie. So he likes to ask, do you guys have a Sharpie? Anyone? And while he's doing that, of course, you already have a Sharpie. And when you're reaching for your Sharpie, you're going to pass the deck over and turn the deck 180. So you swap the card, or swap for the card that's on the bottom of the deck. So let me show you up close how that looks like. So when you're asking for the Sharpie, you're going to simply pass the deck over to your other hand like that. So you're turning the deck 180. Let me break that down for you. You're using these 3 fingers over here as a pivot point for the deck to flip over 180. You can always use gravity and let go and then pass it over to your other hand, or you can have your thumb help push it off as well. Now, when you're receiving the deck in your right hand, it actually saves you a step if you catch it in a mechanic's grip or in a grip where it exposes the 4 of diamonds over here so that they can sign the card. So when you do that, all you're doing is doing that, allowing it to flip over 180, and then you have your Sharpie. You bring that out from the pocket, okay? And then you have them uncap it and just sign their name right over there. So let me show you that in real time. Does anyone have a Sharpie? Actually, I have one over here. Go ahead and take the Sharpie and just sign your name right across the face of the card. Now, of course, you don't have to have the spectator sign the card. You don't need to have a Sharpie in your pocket. You don't need them to sign the face of the card or anything like that. However, I highly recommend that you do so. I encourage you to do so because it does make your performance much more powerful. And it's something for them to take away with at the end with their signature. So it just makes the experience a little bit more intimate that way. So let's have a quick look in terms of the orientation of the deck. We have the card that they just signed with the gimmick on the back. We have those face down cards that you flipped over before, the rest of the deck being face up. And that card that you swapped, the 4 of diamonds, facing down right now. And that's a brief look. Of course, you don't want to be flashing the bottom card, the 4 of diamonds, otherwise you expose that there's 2 of the same cards, which is not good. But all you do at this point is you're going to push off that card, that top one over here, and you're going to pinch the card so that you don't let this flap, freely flap around like that, exposing the gimmick. So you're just going to pinch that card, okay, like that, and you're just going to ditch the rest of this deck because this deck doesn't need to come into play anymore. So that goes away. What you have now is this card. You can always pinch from the flap over here so you can freely show the card. And what you're going to do is you're going to tear this quarter of the card over here. So if I turn this around, this is the piece that you're going to be tearing off. So what you're going to do is you can regrip so that you're about chest level. And what you do is you're just going to tear this quarter of the piece. And you're going to be handing that to the spectator. So once you get to this part, you can always have the spectator tear off that piece as long as you're holding onto the flap over here. So let's say they tore it. And then they keep this in their hand. However, when you're tearing this, it is a little bit bold to have them tear it because it's a red piece right now. But if you're good with audience management, you can always have that. But I like to just tear it off and then hand it to them while it's face up like that, so they can't see the back of the card yet. As for their hand, put it in their hand so that when they receive the corner or the piece, they're holding it face up, and then just have them squeeze onto the card and say, make sure, or hold on to the piece and make sure that it doesn't fly away or anything like that. Make sure that no one is able to get to it. So once this is in their hand, in this case, I'm just going to put it in my pocket, you're left with this. You have 3/4 of the card, and you're ready to do the change. So you're gripping it like so, in this fashion, and you're going to hold it down over here. There's one way to do the change. I'm going to actually go over a few ways to execute the change. However, this is one way. You're going to hold it from the bottom piece like that in your right hand. So your index finger is on the very bottom, your middle finger is over here on the side of that bottom piece, and your thumb is going to be along the side of the card over here. Now a quick tip I want to go over is that before you do the change and they're looking at you, if you're carrying on the rest of your presentation, asking them to look, you can bend inward a little bit just to help you with the change. And bending inward will help, and you'll find that later when you are executing the change. However, at this point, you can always let go. You have 3/4 of the card, blue, and you're ready to execute the change. Now, how to do so is you're going to actually kind of flick your wrist a little bit away from yourself, so to your right. So to you, it looks left. So that's the audience, and you're going to flick like so, and you're going to let gravity do a lot of the work. So when you flick this way, there's force having this flap to want to fold over to this section over here. So if I were to just do that, as you can see, it folds over once to the right or to my right, and then gravity will allow it to flip down to cover the rest of the card like so. And this all happens in a bit of a flick of the wrist. So let me show you that in one motion. All it takes is a small wrist flick like that. And now the gimmick has folded once, twice into this position over here. So it looks like the entire 3 section of the card has changed. Of course, from a distance, they won't be able to see this gimmick over here. So let me break that down a little bit more for you. Let's actually unfold the gimmick so that it looks blue. Now, getting into the position to execute the change, you actually want to hold it as close to the fingertips as possible. That way, when it folds over and you do the change, it clears your fingers, or it clears your fingers, so that you don't create this gap. Now, let's say I was to hold too deep, and I were to do the change like that. You create this gap, and it doesn't look good. It's not